I'm not just standing by with a guest. I'm standing by with somebody who I have actively been lobbying to get to interview for the last decade. And he is one of my heroes at Microsoft. I don't think he knows that, but he really is, because he's such an amazing human and so great at what he does. And I am here with the famous Scott Hanselman, and we're going to talk about some really cool stuff. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you very much. That was a very kind introduction. I appreciate you spending time with me today.
Yeah, well, it was all true. It was all true.
That's very
So
kind.
help me understand this. You know, of course, my domain of expertise is modern work. And Copilot there is very much about the data that I'm interacting with, the documents, the business information, and what have you. How do I think about Copilot in your world?
So within the context of something like GitHub Copilot, it's not just a chatbot that sits off to the side in Visual Studio. Right? I think in the early days of chatbots, it was a very simple thing to go and add a chatbot off to the side, but you have to have sophistication. You have to have deep fingers into your data. Now, to your analogy, in the Teams M365 Office world, it is your data that matters. So the Copilot is grounded in that data.
Correct.
In my world, the data is the code itself, right? It's everything that's happening within Visual Studio, and it's grounded there.
Okay, did you all just hear that? Because I want you to really get that in your bones. The data is the code itself. And being grounded and reasoning over that seems like to me that it would open up a lot of capabilities and opportunity and efficiency for me as somebody who coded. Is that, I hope that's where we're going.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And one of the things that I like to talk about is what's called rubber ducking. Have you ever rubber ducked?
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
You've got a problem and you need to talk to somebody. There's no one available. You can't get anybody on Teams, so you talk to your rubber duck.
Right.
And you go, I've got this problem. I'm trying to write more unit tests. Rubber duck, would you talk to me? And you're really just talking to
It's a plushie unicorn, just for the record, just to be clear. I don't have a rubber ducky. I have a plushie unicorn, but she makes me feel comfortable. Right. And I talk through things with her. I do. That's
and
right.
you talk through things with her.
Yes.
So what if you had a really enthusiastic junior engineer that you could also talk things through with? That's how I interact with people.
I've burnt those people out.
They won't answer your calls anymore.
They don't call me anymore because they know they'll get some.
I really end up talking to myself. I'm a pacer. I'll pace around.
Okay.
And I'll talk to Copilot and I'll brainstorm with it. Because ultimately I'm talking to myself.
Right.
And I'm talking to my code because it is a reflection of me and a reflection of my code because it's looking at all of the open tabs, all of the context that's available to them.
That's fantastic.
Isn't that great?
I think what's interesting that I really want people, especially in the global audience, to understand is whatever you might have seen at the beginning of GitHub Copilot and where we are today in our Copilot experiences across the company, we're evolving at a rapid pace. I mean, I think it's pretty mind-blowing about the new capabilities that are coming every week.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's a really great point. This is not, let's just be really controversial here for a second. There are people out there who are just copy pasting their corporate code into ChatGPT.
Right.
That's not okay.
No, it's not.
Right.
Please don't do that. That's really not okay.
And it doesn't have the knowledge, the understanding of what something like Visual Studio has. Visual Studio has a lot of context.
Right.
I could be in the middle of a debug session and Visual Studio can see the call stack. Take a look at this over here on the right. This is new. These are called icebreakers. So when I'm in Copilot here, I can have an icebreaker, like a conversational icebreaker, because sometimes people don't know what they can ask. So I could say something like, well, explain how the code in this class works. And notice down here, it's actually dropped in a chooser for me to say, well, explain how the code in what
Wow,
works.
that's great.
All right, well, explain how the code in this particular section works. I could say, show me how the code, this is the advertisers on my podcast right here.
Right.
And I'll go and say, explain how the code in this particular CS. By having that link there, I've given it permission. I've given it permission to look at my context. And look at it. It starts explaining it to me. It's effectively writing a book for me. And it has infinite patience, infinite kindness, and it's going to sit there at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday night when the assignment is due and have a conversation with me about what's going on. So it's explaining this for me. And then down here, we've got a new feature that we're going to be talking about where I can pick the model that works the way my brain works.
Because everybody likes to use their own model, right? I mean, everybody has, and plus more are coming.
Yep.
And some are appropriate to different things. And so, I think that giving people that kind of flexibility helps improve the experience and really tailor it to what it is that they need.
Yes.
Which is the whole point.
It is all about choice. Everything that we're trying to do is to give people choice about how they interact with the thing. At my talk that I'm going to be giving, which is Breakout 141 with Jesse and Dahlia, they use Copilot differently than I do. I really like the chat.
Right.
But some of them really don't. They'll spend their time over here and they'll be writing their code by maybe writing a comment. And they'll say, write me a for loop. And then it will go and start calculating that. It'll start calculating that for loop because it'll see the comment and then start to write that code. And then now it's going to say, all right,
look.
I'm going to go and tab. Or they'll bring up one of the hotkeys for AI and they'll do it in line. Or maybe they'll select some code and right-click on it and say, ask Copilot like this.
Now, you're bringing up something. I'm going to go with you on this. Things that are a little bit controversial. I want to add to that just a little bit. People give us feedback about the way Copilot shows up in these experiences that they already have a relationship with. But these experiences are changing. Copilot, you can find it in Word, and yes, it's at the top, and the summary is there, but you can close it if you want, or you can hit the hotkeys. What you're showing me is a similar mode where you're picking the way you're interacting with this capability. So right. I know that people maybe don't like change sometimes, but we need you to get a little more used to these new things that are coming, because more is coming, and we will do our best to make them elegantly integrated. But the fact is that they're here.
Yeah.
And you get to pick how you want to work with them.
And you can choose to ignore the things that you don't like.
Right.
You can continue to use your machine in the way that you use it, but it should be an accelerator.
Yes.
The goal here is to reduce toil.
Yes.
If there's a thing that you don't like because it's boring or it makes you sad or it's tedious, like here I've got some unit tests and I want to right-click and say, can you write me 10 more of these?
Right. Do you really need to spend your Tuesday night doing that, or can you just have it do it for you?
Exactly.
Based on this, because it also is understanding the way in which you want to write those. Now, isn't there something special about where you're actually doing this work? This machine that you're actually working on?
Well, it is worth noting that this is actually, coincidentally, not related to GitHub Copilot. This is actually a Copilot PC. So I'm doing this on a Qualcomm Snapdragon machine, not an Intel machine, one of the new ones. And everything just works. Yeah, Net, Visual Studio,
pretty
Copilot,
fast.
all running on this ARM machine, which is working really great. I also wanted to call out one other funny thing here. As long as I've been coding, I still get confused about things in Git.
Yeah.
I can go and ask those questions to Copilot. And in a preview coming soon, you'll be able to ask those questions. And if Copilot doesn't know, it'll go out and it'll Google with Bing for the answer and bring that web search into your answers.
That's fantastic. And, you just made me feel a lot better about myself, because there are terms like that and things that I just don't remember from session to session, because I don't do this every day like I have in the past. So I come back to it. I'm like, wait, what does that actually mean? Thank you for saying that you asked those too.
It's totally
wherever
okay.
You're getting started from, Copilot is there to answer those questions for you. And remember that that's what it's for, right?
Yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out that it's there for everyone at different levels.
Yes.
I've been doing a series called Deep.net with partner engineer Stephen Tobe, and when I watch him, he uses it primarily as an autocomplete tool, because he starts writing the code,
right.
It sees where he's going, and he goes, looks good, and he accelerates. While I'm more of a yapper, and I'll just chat with it, right?
There's a hashtag in there somewhere.
Yeah, there's a hashtag.
Hanselman, yapper.
Bit of a yapper.
Power yapper.
And I'll have whole conversations with it, asking it to explain this, catch me up, make more unit tests. And then if you're an early in career person, you might say, well, talk to me about recursion. Give me an example of those things.
And it's doing it in the context of the environment that you're doing this work in as well. I have to believe that is a powerful tool when it comes to crafting solutions and code.
Yeah, that is super important. That context we're getting better and better on, because you might want to, I'm trying to do a zoom in here. If I go here, you can see, well, what file am I talking about? Am I talking about this larger workspace? You can also talk to different agents. I could talk to GitHub, talk to Visual Studio itself. We're going to see in our session where you can maybe looking for a setting in Visual Studio and you can't find it in the menus. We'll take you there fast. You want to ask questions about GitHub? we can have that agent do the work as well as third-party agents, which is pretty cool.
Amazing. Well, I'm so glad that your session is happening with your friends, because you'll be able to check that out in the session scheduler. If you're not able to join them live or here in the room, make sure that you save it to your favorites, because then you'll get to come back and look at it later. I have now ascended to one of my big goals and being a host at Microsoft Ignite and getting to interview you. And it was everything I hoped it was going to be, because you give amazing demos and you're so knowledgeable about your space, and it is really fun. So thank you, Scott, for being with me today.
Thank you for making me look good. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much.